Rachel switched them, baby. My mother's voice crackled from a recorder hidden in her desk. 3 weeks after I buried her, 3 years after I'd been giving her those pills. You were always such a good little nurse, Diane, Rachel had said at the funeral. Said it with her wine glass raised, smiling at me across the room, like it was a compliment, like she was proud of me. I stood there, holding a plate of untouched casserole, surrounded by people I barely recognized, and something in her tone made my stomach drop straight through the floor. But I told myself I was being paranoid. Grief does that, right? Makes you hear things that aren't there. Makes you suspicious of kindness. Makes you see shadows in the faces of people who love you. So I smiled back, nodded, took a sip of water to have something to do with my hands. Rachel was already moving on, touching someone else's arm, tilting her head at just the right angle, accepting condolences like she was collecting tribute. She'd always been good at that. The social grace, the performing of emotion. She could cry on command at funerals and switch to laughter at the wake without anyone noticing the seams. I was the other kind of sister, the one who stood in corners, the one who organized the casserole dishes by temperature and type, the one who made sure there were enough napkins and that the coffee stayed hot and that someone thanked each guest as they left. The invisible sister. The useful one. Good little nurse. Why couldn't I stop hearing it? I went home to Mom's house that night and couldn't sleep. Kept hearing Rachel's voice. The emphasis she'd put on little. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The wine glass catching the light as she raised it. Like a toast. Like a celebration. Like she'd won something. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself grief was making me crazy. I told myself sisters say stupid things at funerals because no one knows how to behave when their mother is in the ground. 3 weeks later, I found the first recording. And everything I'd told myself turned out to be a lie. I should back up. My mother, Patricia Morgan, was 68 when the forgetting started. Little things at first. Things that could happen to anyone. She'd call me by my sister's name. Lose her keys 3 times in one afternoon. Ask me the same question twice in an hour and look confused when I pointed it out. Did I ask that already? I could have sworn. I was 59 then, still working full-time at the Millbrook Public Library. Reference section mostly, helping people find things they didn't know they were looking for. I was good at it. Patient, thorough. The kind of person who would spend 45 minutes tracking down an obscure genealogy record just to see the look on someone's face when they found their great-grandmother's immigration papers. My husband had left 5 years before. My son was grown and living in Seattle. My life had narrowed to work, to Mom, to the small routines that keep lonely people from noticing how quiet their houses have become. Rachel lived 2 hours away with her husband, Marcus, managing some tech startup that was always either about to take off or about to collapse. She visited once a month, if we were lucky. Called on Sundays, though the calls got shorter over time. Talked about funding rounds and client acquisitions and things I pretended to understand. So when Mom's doctor said early onset dementia, it made horrible sense. And of course, I was the one who'd handle it. I was the one who'd always handled everything. Rachel had her important career. Rachel had her important life. Rachel had a husband who needed her, and a company that couldn't function without her, and 1,000 excuses wrapped in the language of ambition. I had Mom. I had time. I had all the love in the world, and nothing else to spend it on. The doctor prescribed 3 medications. 1 for memory, to slow the progression. 1 for mood, to help with the anxiety and agitation. 1 for sleep, because dementia patients often have disrupted sleep patterns that make everything worse. Hendricks explained each one carefully, drew little diagrams showing how they worked in the brain, gave me pamphlets about what to expect, how to manage, where to find support groups. I picked up the medications that same day, organized them in a weekly pill dispenser from the pharmacy. 7 days, 4 times daily, color-coded and labeled. Morning, noon, evening, bedtime. Because that's what I do. I organize things, I create systems. It's soothing, honestly. The world feels manageable when you have the right containers. My ex-husband used to say I'd alphabetize the apocalypse. He meant it as an insult, a way of saying I was cold, rigid, unable to go with the flow. I took it as instruction. If the world ends, at least I'll know where everything is. The first year wasn't terrible. Mom was still mostly herself. Still sharp enough to argue about politics and complain about the neighbors and remember every embarrassing thing I'd ever done as a child. We'd have good days where she'd tell stories about growing up in Ohio, about her father's hardware store and her mother's famous apple pie, about meeting Dad at a dance in 1972 and knowing immediately that she was going to marry him. Bad days where she couldn't remember what year it was, where she'd ask about Dad, who'd been dead for 7 years, and I'd have to tell her again and watch her face crumble, where she'd cry for an hour and then forget why she was crying. I moved in with her after 6 months. It seemed easier than driving over every morning and evening. Plus, the library had just offered early retirement packages. Budget cuts, they said. Sorry, they said. The timing felt like a sign. I set up the guest room as my bedroom, kept my clothes in the closet and my books on the nightstand and pretended I was just staying for a while. That this was temporary. That someday things would go back to normal. I kept detailed notes about everything. What she ate for each meal and how much. How she slept, the quality and duration. Mood changes throughout the day. Moments of confusion, lucidity, agitation, bathroom patterns because the doctor said that mattered. Weight fluctuations because that mattered too. I bought a special notebook from the office supply store. 3-ring binder with tabbed sections. Daily logs, weekly summaries, monthly reports. A complete record of my mother's slow dissolution. I thought I was being a good daughter. A responsible caregiver. Helping her doctors track the disease's progression. Giving them data to work with, patterns to analyze. Every 2 weeks, I'd call Rachel with updates. Read from my notes like I was giving a presentation. Her sleep has been inconsistent, averaging only 4 hours a night. Appetite is fair, but she's refusing vegetables. There were 3 episodes of confusion this week, up from 2 the week before. Rachel always sounded distracted. I could hear keyboard clicks in the background, email notifications pinging. Her mind somewhere else entirely. That's rough, Di. Hey, can we talk later? I'm heading into a meeting. Sure, I'd say. Every single time. I'd hang up feeling foolish, like I'd bored her, like my careful notes and organized observations were ridiculous, like taking care of our dying mother was somehow less important than whatever startup drama was consuming her week. But I kept doing it, because someone had to, because Mom deserved to be documented, because if I stopped keeping track, maybe I'd fall apart entirely. Year 2 was harder. Mom started having episodes. That's what the doctor called them. Episode. She'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced it was 1975, asking where the children were, panicking because she couldn't find the babies. Rachel and I were in our 50s, but in her mind we were toddlers who'd wandered off and gotten lost. She'd forget she'd already eaten breakfast and get angry about being starved. You're trying to kill me, she'd hiss, and the words would cut deeper than she could possibly know. She'd look at me with such fear sometimes, like I was a stranger who'd broken into her house, like she didn't know why this strange woman kept touching her, adjusting her blankets, trying to put pills in her mouth. The doctor adjusted the medications twice that year. Higher doses, he said. Better control. She needs more support. I followed his instructions exactly. Increased the morning dose of the memory medication, added an extra half pill of the mood stabilizer at noon, kept meticulous records of every change and its effects. I was so careful, so precise, so determined to do everything right. Rachel started coming around more. Once a week suddenly, instead of once a month. Driving down on Sunday mornings with fancy coffee and pastries from that bakery near her house. I feel terrible. I haven't been more involved, she said one Sunday. She was sitting at Mom's kitchen table, looking at my logs with what seemed like genuine interest. She hugged me tight when she said it, longer than she'd hugged me in years. You're such a saint, Diane. I don't know how you do it. Honestly, I don't think I could handle what you handle. I'd fall apart. I remember actually feeling grateful, tears pricking at my eyes, thinking maybe we were becoming closer. Two sisters, bonded through crisis, finding our way back to each other after years of polite distance. She started helping with the medication sometimes, offering to organize the pill dispensers when she visited, checking the bottles, double counting the pills, making sure everything was in order. You do so much, she'd say. Let me help with the little things. And il était, because I was tired, because I was grateful, because it felt so good to have someone else care. God, I was stupid. The third year, Mom barely spoke. She'd sit in her chair by the window for hours, watching birds that weren't there, staring at a sky she didn't seem to see. Her hands would move sometimes, restless in her lap like she was trying to hold something that kept slipping away. Sometimes she'd cry without sound, tears streaming down her face while her expression stayed empty. Like her body remembered grief even when her mind couldn't hold it. I'd hold her hand and tell her it was okay, that I was there, that I loved her, that she wasn't alone. She'd look at me with these devastated eyes, this look of absolute horror and sorrow, like she was drowning and could see the surface but couldn't swim. I thought it was the disease. I thought she was losing herself. I thought the mother I knew was slipping away into some fog-filled place where I couldn't follow. And she was, but not the way I thought. Not the way anyone would have thought. Looking back now, I can see it. The moments when her eyes would clear for just a second, when she'd grip my hand with sudden, desperate strength, when she'd try to say something and then stop, frustrated, the words dissolving before they could form. She was trying to tell me, fighting through whatever was flooding her brain to reach me. And I kept patting her hand and adjusting her blankets and telling her everything was fine. Everything was not fine. Nothing was fine. And she knew it. She knew exactly what was happening to her. She just couldn't make me understand. She died on a Tuesday in March. Heart failure, technically, that's what the death certificate said. But really, she just gave up, stopped fighting, let go. I'd seen it coming for weeks. The way she'd stopped eating, taking only a few bites before pushing the food away. The way she'd stopped trying to swallow her pills, clamping her lips shut like a stubborn child, at me anymore. Toward the end, she'd push my hand away when I brought the medication. Physically push it away, which took more strength than she'd shown in months. I'd coax her, use applesauce to hide the pills, wait until she was drowsy and more compliant, feel accomplished when she'd finally take them. Pat myself on the back for being such a dedicated caregiver. Jesus Christ. The funeral was small. Mom had outlived most of her friends. The ones who came were old, uncertain, confused about who this woman in the casket really was. Rachel organized everything, which surprised me. I was too numb to argue, too exhausted to care about details. She picked the flowers, white roses and baby's breath, wrote the obituary, loving mother, devoted friend, taken too soon, chose the readings. Something from Psalms, something from a poem Mom had never mentioned. I just showed up and nodded. Wore the black dress Rachel suggested, sat where Rachel told me to sit. Spoke when Rachel said it was time to speak. At the reception, Rachel worked the room like a campaign event, touching arms, tilting her head sympathetically, accepting condolences with practiced grace. She was good at it. She'd always been good at performing emotion, at wearing the right face for the right moment, at making people feel seen and comforted while revealing nothing of herself. I stood in the corner, mechanical, accepting casseroles I'd never eat, smiling at people whose names I couldn't remember, counting the minutes until I could go home and scream. That's when she said it, crossed the room to where I was standing, raised her wine glass like we were at a party instead of awake. You were always such a good little nurse, Diane. That smile, that perfectly calibrated, sisterly, loving smile. That didn't reach her eyes. I went home to Mom's house that night and lay in my bed for hours, staring at the ceiling, hearing those words on a loop. Good little nurse, good little nurse, good little nurse. Why did it sound like mockery? I started packing up Mom's things the next week, not because I wanted to, not because I was ready, because staying still felt impossible. The house was too quiet, full of her absence, her chair by the window empty, her smell fading from the pillows, her presence dissolving like morning fog. If I kept moving, maybe I wouldn't notice. If I had tasks, maybe I wouldn't think. If I put everything in boxes, maybe I could box up the grief too. Rachel said she'd help but never showed. Too busy, she texted. Work emergency, she texted. Marcus needs me, she texted. You understand. I did understand. I'd understood my whole life. I did Mom's bedroom first. Clothes sorted in to donate, keep, discard piles. Jewelry cataloged and photographed for the estate. The stack of unread books on her nightstand, bookmarks still in place, pages she'd never finish. Then her bathroom, half-empty bottles of lotion she'd never use again. The brush with her gray hairs still tangled in the bristles. Her toothbrush in the holder like she might come back for it. I threw up in that bathroom, held onto the sink, and sobbed until I couldn't breathe. Then washed my face and kept going. Then her office. That's where I found it. The office was really just a converted sunroom. Glass walls on 3 sides, morning light flooding through. Mom had used it for her watercolors before she got sick. She'd been good. Really good. Landscapes mostly, but sometimes flowers, sometimes birds. She'd sold a few pieces at local craft fairs, though she never charged what they were worth. I'd avoided this room during her illness. It felt too sad, seeing her art supplies gathering dust. The easel folded in the corner, the half-finished painting on the table, abandoned mid-brush stroke. Autumn trees by a lake she'd painted from memory. She'd never told me where it was. Now I'd never know. The desk was small, pushed against the one solid wall. Covered in papers, receipts, the debris of a life. I started sorting through it mechanically. Bank statements filed, old birthday cards, saved, expired coupons recycled. The desk drawer stuck when I tried to open it. I had to yank hard. When it finally gave, something fell behind the drawer. A small thud against the back of the desk. I pulled the whole drawer out to retrieve it. A small digital recorder. The cheap kind they sell at office supply stores. Black plastic, simple buttons, nothing fancy. Battery dead. I turned it over in my hands. Tried to remember if Mom had ever mentioned owning one. Couldn't think of any reason she would have. But then, I couldn't think of anything at all. My mind was blank. Numb. Just going through the motions. I took it to the kitchen. Plugged it into a charger that happened to fit. Made tea I wouldn't drink. Watched the red light turn green. 45 minutes later, I pressed play. My mother's voice. Clear, coherent, completely lucid, like the mother I remembered from before the diagnosis. The mother who told jokes and read novels and painted autumn lakes from places she'd never take me. Diane, if you're hearing this, I'm either dead or too far gone to help myself. I sat down hard. The chair scraped against the floor. The sound seemed to come from very far away. I need you to know I tried to tell you. I tried so many times. Her voice cracked. I could hear her fighting to stay composed. Fighting to get the words out. But every time I said something was wrong with the pills, you thought it was the dementia. The pills. My heart stopped. I swear to God, for one long moment, my heart stopped beating. Rachel switched them, baby. I don't know when exactly. 3 months after the diagnosis, maybe 4. I started feeling wrong. Fudge. Like I was underwater. Like my thoughts were wrapped in cotton and I couldn't find my way through. No, no, no. I tried to tell you, but I couldn't explain it right. Her breathing was ragged on the recording. I could hear her struggling. The same struggle I'd watched for 3 years without understanding. The fog made it hard to find words. They'd be right there, right on the tip of my tongue, and then they'd just solvi. And you were so worried about me, so careful with the medications. A bitter laugh, a sound I'd never heard my mother make. You'd check them against the bottles. Make sure I took them all. Make sure I didn't skip any doses. You were so diligent, so thorough. Rachel was very smart about that. Mom's breathing steadied. I could hear her composing herself, finding the strength to continue. I hid this recorder in my desk in case I got too bad. In case I forgot what I knew. Because I am forgetting, Diane. Every day, there's less of me. Every day, the fog takes more. But I'm not losing myself to a disease. I'm being erased. There are more recordings. I've been trying to document everything. Every day I can manage it. Some days I can't. Some days I don't even remember the recorder exists. The pills are in my craft closet. Bottom shelf, behind the acrylic paint. The red cadmium? You know the ones. Original bottles and the ones Rachel gave you. I managed to take one from each, hide them away before the fog got too thick. I don't know what they are, but they're not what the labels say. I know because I can feel them working. They're not helping me, Diane. They're taking me away. Her voice got very quiet, barely a whisper, like she was telling me a secret, like she was afraid someone might hear. I'm scared, Diane. I'm so scared. A long pause, just her breathing. Just my mother, alone in her studio, speaking into a recorder that might never be found. But I'm more scared you'll blame yourself. You didn't know, baby. You were trying to help. You were being exactly who I raised you to be. Careful and thorough and devoted and good. It's not your fault. Please know that. Whatever happens, whatever you find, it's not your fault. The recording ended. I sat at the kitchen table for 3 hours. Didn't move. Didn't cry. Didn't breathe, it felt like. Just sat. The tea went cold in front of me. The light changed through the windows. The house settled and creaked around me. I was processing, trying to make the words I'd heard fit into a shape I could understand. Rachel switched them. Rachel switched the pills. My sister, my own sister, and I couldn't think the words. Not yet. Not in that moment. Then I got up, walked to the craft closet, bottom shelf behind the acrylic paint. The red cadmium, just like she'd said. She'd put them in a plastic container marked brushes, hiding in plain sight, right where I never would have looked. 2 sets of pill bottles. One set had the pharmacy labels. Legitimate, official, exactly what I'd been giving her for 3 years. The other set was identical. Same bottles, same size, same shape. But the labels were slightly off. The font a little different. The spacing a little wrong. Home printed, maybe. A very good copy, but not perfect. I'd never noticed. Why would I notice? I was giving her the pills from the bottles Rachel had organized, checking them against the labels like a good caregiver, like a good little nurse. I lined them up on the table, original and fake, side by side. Took photos with my phone. My hands were shaking so badly the first 3 were blurry. I had to brace my arms against the table and try again. I sat back down, looked at the bottles, looked at my phone, looked at the recorder, and started to understand what my sister had done. I found 6 more recordings over the next 2 days. Mom had hidden them everywhere, like Easter eggs, like messages in bottles, like a trail of breadcrumbs through a dark forest. One in a tampon box under the bathroom sink. Rachel would never look there. Neither would I, usually. But I was being thorough. Mom knew I would be thorough. One inside a cookbook she knew I'd never use. French country cooking, wedged between recipes for cassoulet and coq au vin. I hate cooking, always have. Mom used to tease me about it. One in the pocket of her winter coat. The blue one with the brass buttons. The one I'd put in the donate pile and then pulled back out because I couldn't bear to let it go. She knew I'd keep it. She knew I'd find it eventually. One in a hollowed-out book on the shelf. War and Peace. I almost missed it. Of every single book in the house. Because that's what I do. That's who I am. Thorough to the point of obsession. One behind the photograph on her nightstand. The picture of Dad. She'd taped it to the back of the frame. I found it when I was dusting. She knew I'd dust. She knew I couldn't leave things dirty. One in my own suitcase. In my own room. Hidden in the pocket where I keep my travel documents. She must have put it there during one of my showers. During one of the brief moments when I wasn't watching, she was planning. Even in the fog, she was planning. Each recording was dated, labeled in her increasingly shaky handwriting. March 15, March 22, April Trey, a chronicle of her dissolution, each one more heartbreaking than the last. In the second recording, Mom explained how it started. Rachel visited alone one Sunday. You were out getting groceries. She said she wanted to spend quality time with me while she still could, while I could still appreciate it. I remembered that day. I'd come back to find them laughing together. Rachel had made tea. Mom had looked happier than she had in weeks. How thoughtful, I'd said. What a wonderful sister. During that visit, Rachel offered to reorganize my medications. She said, "You seemed overwhelmed," that she wanted to help. She took all the pill bottles to the bathroom, said she was going to make them easier to manage, color code them or something like that. I didn't think anything of it. A pause. Mom's breathing, slow and measured. When she came back, everything looked the same. Maybe a little neater? She dumped the original pills into unlabeled containers. For backup, she said, in case the main bottles ran out. She filled the pharmacy bottles with something else, put them back in perfect order, and you never knew the difference? Why would you? Why would anyone? Mom's voice broke. I could hear tears now. Grief and rage tangled together. I didn't realize until weeks later. By then I was already so confused. Already forgetting things. Already losing time. When I tried to tell you, I couldn't make sense. The words came out wrong. Or I'd forget what I was saying mid-sentence. Or I'd get so frustrated I'd just start crying. You thought I was being paranoid, combative, difficult. You told me it was the disease talking. You held my hand and said the medications were helping, that I needed to trust the process, that you'd take care of everything. I remembered that conversation. I remembered her grip on my hand. How desperate it had seemed. How I'd interpreted it as fear of the disease. How I'd soothed her like a child, told her everything would be okay, that I would make sure she got her medicine, that I wouldn't let anything bad happen to her. God. The third recording was shorter. Just Mom crying. Long, racking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep. Then, finally, words. I tried to flush the pills down the toilet. I snuck into the bathroom when you were sleeping and tried to get rid of them. But my hands were shaking so badly, I dropped them. You found them in the trash can the next morning. I remembered that day, too. The pills scattered among the tissues. The look on Mom's face when I confronted her. Confused? Scared? Guilty? I'd interpreted it as confusion. As the disease making her do irrational things. You were so worried about me trying to hurt myself. You got a lockbox for the medications after that. Kept them in your bedroom. Brought them to me at the right times. So responsible. So careful. Another sob. And I couldn't stop you. I couldn't explain. I couldn't make you understand. I was screaming inside, and nothing came out right. I stopped the recording. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't exist in a world where this was true. Murdering her by routine. That's what I'd been doing. 3 years of careful, thorough, devoted murder. I threw up in the kitchen sink. Heaved until there was nothing left. Then sat on the floor with my back against the cabinets and stared at the recorder like it might explode. The fourth recording mentioned Rachel's visits increasing. She comes every week now, sometimes twice. She asks to see your logs, the ones you keep about me. She studies them like they're important, praises you for being so detailed, so organized. Diane's doing such a great job, she says. Look at all these notes. And you beam at her. So happy to be appreciated. So happy to finally have help. Mom's voice was thicker in this recording, slurred slightly. The fog getting worse. She's using you, baby. Can you hear me? Can you understand? She needs you to be the one who does it, who gives the pills, who keeps the records. So her hands stay clean. A long pause. I could hear her struggling to hold on to the thought, to finish what she needed to say. I tried to write it down for you, left notes everywhere, but I can't remember where I put things. Can't remember what I already wrote. Sometimes I find notes in my own handwriting and I don't remember writing them. I'm losing time, Diane. Whole days gone, whole weeks that I can't find. Please find this. Please figure it out. You're so good at figuring things out. You always have been. Please, don't let her win. I found the notes too. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Hidden in the same places as the recordings and in other places too. In books, in drawers, slipped between couch cushions, folded into origami shapes and tucked into the potted plants. Stuck to the bottom of picture frames with tape. Crammed into the pockets of clothes she hadn't worn in months. A paper trail of desperation. Most were illegible, the handwriting deteriorating across the timeline. You could watch her decline in the shakiness of the letters, the wandering lines, the incomplete words. Early ones said clear things. Pills are wrong. Tell Diane. Rachel changed something. Check the bottles. I feel foggy. Something's making me foggy. Check the pills. Middle ones were more frantic. Diane listened to me. Pills not right. Rachel, trust me. I'm not crazy. I'm being poisoned. Check the pills, please. Tell someone. Tell the doctor. Something is wrong. 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 Over and over. Filling entire pages. Wrong. 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 Some were just single words. Rachel. Pills. Help. Some were drawings. Pill bottles with X's through them. A crude sketch that might have been a person switching something. A heart with cracks through it. The last one I found just said, "Love you, baby girl," in barely controlled scrawl. The letters wavering like they might fall apart at any moment. Tucked inside my copy of The Joy Luck Club, the book I'd read to her in those last months, when she couldn't read anymore herself. When she'd just listen to my voice and hold my hand and look at me with those devastated eyes, she'd been trying to tell me. With every ounce of strength she had left, she'd been screaming, and I'd kept reading, kept holding her hand, kept giving her the pills that were taking her away. I sat with all of it for a week. The recordings, all 7 of them. The pills, both sets. The notes, smoothed flat and arranged by date as best I could manage. My own logs, 3 years of meticulous documentation. I spread everything across Mom's dining room table, covered the entire surface, started building a timeline. 'Cause that's what I do. I organize. I create systems. I find patterns in chaos. The switch happened 4 months after diagnosis. I could pinpoint it now. The week when Rachel had visited alone. The week when her symptoms suddenly accelerated. I'd noted it in my logs at the time. Significant decline this week. Confusion épisode up 200%. Mood disturbances more frequent. Doctor advised patience. The doctor. Hendricks? I called his office, asked for copies of all of Mom's records. Medical records, prescription history, everything. The nurse was sympathetic. Said it might help with the grieving process. Said lots of families wanted to understand what had happened. I didn't tell her I already understood. The records arrived a week later. I went through them page by page. Hendrix had increased Mom's medications multiple times, responding to reports of worsening symptoms, reports that came from me, based on observations that were real that I'd documented carefully. Symptoms that were caused by pills that weren't what he'd prescribed. He'd tried different combinations, adjusted dosages, added new medications to counteract side effects, all based on my careful, thorough, completely manipulated reports. He didn't know. He couldn't have known, but Rachel had made sure he was complicit too. Another clean pair of hands. I needed to know what the pills actually were. I called a friend from Library Book Club, Marcy Chen, who'd worked in pharmaceutical quality control before retiring. We'd had coffee together once a month for 15 years, talked about books, mostly, sometimes about our kids, our marriages, our health. I'd never asked her for anything. Diane, how are you holding up, honey? I'm managing. The lie came easily. Actually, I need a favor. Anything. I found some old medications and wanted to know if they're still safe. Could you point me toward testing? Some kind of lab? Marcy didn't ask questions. That's one of the things I love about her. She gave me a lab name, a contact number, a rough estimate of cost, said they did private testing for individuals. Completely confidential. I shipped the bottles overnight, marked them carefully, kept copies of all the tracking information. Results came back in 3 days. I sat at Mom's dining room table and read them 3 times, then 4 times, then 5. The memory medication was actually a heavy sedative, commonly used in veterinary medicine, not approved for human use in the doses present. The mood stabilizer was an antihistamine, over the counter technically, but known to cause significant cognitive impairment in elderly patients, listed as inappropriate for seniors by multiple medical boards. The sleep aid was legitimate. The actual prescription Dr. Hendrix had written, but the pills were triple the prescribed dose. Combined, they would create exactly the symptoms Mom had shown: confusion, drowsiness, memory issues, emotional flatness, difficulty speaking, difficulty thinking, difficulty being. Increased over time, they would essentially lobotomize someone chemically, slowly erasing the person while leaving the body behind. The lab report was technical, detailed, full of medical terminology and chemical formulas. Exactly what I needed. I still hadn't confronted Rachel. Couldn't. Not yet. I needed to understand why. The full picture. The complete system. Mom hadn't been rich. There was no obvious financial motive. No life insurance payout. No hidden fortune. Unless there was something I didn't know. I went through Mom's financial records. Every bank statement, every investment account, every bill. The same careful, thorough approach I'd brought to everything else. Mom had been comfortable. Not wealthy, but comfortable. Dad's pension provided steady income. Social Security covered the basics. The house was paid off. About $400,000 in retirement accounts. Enough to live on. Not enough to kill for. Not enough to destroy your own mother for. Unless the will split everything 50-50 between Rachel and me. Even in death, Mom was fair. Equal shares for her equal daughters. But there was a complication. A codicil, added 2 years before Mom died. Before the disease supposedly took hold, back when she was still lucid, still herself, still capable of making legal decisions, the lawyer had a copy. I requested it. Read it in his office with my hands shaking. In the event that either of my daughters, Rachel Morgan Ellis or Diane Morgan Walsh, is found to have neglected, abused, or otherwise harmed me during my final illness, that daughter's share of my estate shall be forfeited entirely and shall pass to the other daughter. Mom had told me about this codicil when she added it, sat me down in this very house and explained her reasoning. I want to make sure whoever takes care of me is protected, she'd said. If something happens, if there's ever any question about your care, I want the record to be clear. This way, If anyone tries to accuse you of anything, you'll have the inheritance to fight back. To prove your innocence. I thought it was sweet, thoughtful, typical mom, always looking out for her girls. Now I understood. Mom had been protecting me from something she must have already suspected, from something she'd seen in Rachel that I'd been too close to notice. If I'd been accused of elder abuse, of hastening her death, of poisoning her, I'd lose everything. Rachel would get it all. And Rachel had made sure all the documentation pointed to me. My logs, my medication administration, my care, my fingerprints on every single dose. If anyone questioned how quickly Mom deteriorated, if anyone wondered about the aggressive decline, if anyone thought to investigate, all roads led to Diane, the devoted daughter who maybe got a little too devoted, maybe got a little overwhelmed, maybe got a little careless with the medications, maybe wanted it over with, maybe helped things along. Rachel's hands stayed spotless. She barely visited, certainly didn't administer any medication, couldn't possibly be blamed. And once I was convicted, once I was stripped of my inheritance and my reputation and my freedom, Rachel would get everything. The house, the money, the clean conscience. She'd probably give interviews about how shocked she was, how she never suspected her sister was capable of such a thing, how their mother had deserved so much better. I went through Rachel's finances next. It wasn't hard. Public records mostly, property taxes, court filings, business registrations, the kind of information anyone can find if they know where to look. And I know where to look. 30 years in a library teaches you things. The tech startup wasn't doing well. Multiple rounds of failed funding. Lawsuits from former employees. A cease and desist from a larger company alleging patent infringement. Marcus, Rachel's husband, had a gambling problem. Several casinos had filed collection notices. Debts in the six figures. Their mortgage was 3 months behind. Then 4. Then the foreclosure notices started. Rachel needed money. Needed it badly. Needed it soon. $400,000 would solve a lot of problems. Would save her house, her marriage, her pride. Would let her keep pretending she had the important life. All she had to do was kill our mother and frame me for it. I finally allowed myself to cry on the 9th day. Sat on Mom's bedroom floor, surrounded by her clothes and her notes and her paintings of lakes I'd never see. Sobbed until my ribs ached and my throat was raw and my eyes were swollen shut. For what I'd done? 3 years of careful, devoted murder. 3 years of soothing her while I poisoned her. 3 years of ignoring her desperate attempts to tell me the truth. For what had been done to me. My own sister using me as a weapon, counting on my devotion, my thoroughness, my inability to question. Making me the perfect patsy. For Mom, coherent and terrified behind the fog. Fighting to save me even as she drowned. Leaving trails I'd eventually follow. Believing in me even when I failed her completely. Then I got up, washed my face. Looked at myself in Mom's bathroom mirror. The woman looking back was older than I remembered. Grayer, with deep lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 3 years ago. But she was also something else. Something new. Angry, not sad anymore. Not broken. Not bewildered. Angry. I dried my face, straightened my shoulders. Emma de Aplan, the 5th recording. I'd saved one. Hadn't been able to listen to it yet. The label said it was from the final month of Mom's life. The shakiest handwriting. The last message? I pressed play. Diane. Just my name. And then nothing for a long moment. Just breathing. Just Mom trying to hold on. I don't have much time left. Her voice was almost unrecognizable. Thick, slurred, like speaking through water. Not much. Me. Left. I wanted you to know I see you. Every day. I see you. Taking care of me. I know you don't. Don't think I know. But I see you. A long, shuddering breath. You read to me. The Joy Luck Club. I hear the words. Sometimes I understand. Sometimes I don't. But I hear your voice. I know you're there. I know you love me. Crying now. Both of us. Her on the recording, me in the kitchen, separated by death and time and understanding. Please forgive yourself. When you find this, when you understand what happened, please, you did everything right. Everything a good daughter could do. You just didn't know. How could you know? Rachel was. She was always a pause. Mom searching for words. The fog closing in. She was always the one who took. And you were always the one who gave. I should have. I should have seen. Should have protected you. That's what mothers do. Protect their babies. I failed. I'm sorry. The recording went quiet. Just breathing for a while. Then, very quietly. I love you, Diane. More than you know. More than I could ever say. Be happy. When this is over, be happy. That's what I want. For my baby girl to be happy. End of recording. Rachel called the next morning. I was ready, had practiced my lines, prepared my performance. If Rachel could act, so could I. Hey, Di, how are you holding up? Her voice was warm, concerned. The loving sister checking on her grieving sibling. I matched her tone exactly. Mirror image. Two performers circling each other. Oh, taking it day by day. That's all you can do, really. I keep meaning to come help you pack up the house. That would be nice. There's a lot to go through. Have you found anything interesting? A careful question. Not too eager. Just curious. Mostly just old papers. Bills. Receipts. You know how Mom was. She kept everything. A pause. Relief in the silence. She thought her secrets were safe. Have you thought about what you want to keep? Before we have the estate sale? The estate, right? The money, the house, the prize she'd killed for. A few things. Her paintings, definitely. Some of the jewelry. That sounds nice. I was thinking we should probably sort through her papers together. The financial stuff. Make sure nothing important gets thrown away. I can handle that. Quick. Too quick. You've done so much already. Let me take that off your plate. I bet she wanted to. Wanted to find any evidence I might have missed. Wanted to make sure the trail only led where she wanted it to lead. That's sweet, I said. But I'm nearly done anyway. Actually, I found something interesting. Silence on the line. Long enough that I could hear her breathing. Then, carefully. Oh? Some old photos. I didn't know Mom kept so many of Dad. Her exhale was audible. Relief. She thought I was an idiot. And why wouldn't she? I'd been an idiot for 3 years. Well, I'd love to see those. I'll come by this weekend. Perfect, I said. See you Saturday. I spent the week preparing. Made copies of everything. Recordings transferred to digital files and backed up in 3 places. Lab reports photocopied and scanned. The fake pill bottles photographed from every angle. Mom's notes organized chronologically and preserved in plastic sleeves. Put one complete set in a safety deposit box at the bank. Another with my lawyer, with instructions to open if anything happened to me. A third with Marcy, who asked no questions. Just hugged me and said she was there if I needed anything. I also did something else. Something Mom would have appreciated. Something that used the skills I'd spent a lifetime developing. I created a memorial. A website, actually. Simple, clean, professional. The kind of thing you'd expect from a grieving daughter honoring her mother's memory. My nephew Tyler helped me set it up. Rachel's son, ironically, he's 23 and works in web design. Thinks I'm hopeless with technology. Just a tribute page for Grandma, I told him. Some photos, some stories, something the family can visit. That's really sweet, Aunt Diane. He showed me how to upload photos and text, how to embed audio files, how to share it on social media, how to make it public or private, how to schedule posts for later. He was very patient, very thorough, explained everything twice. I played up the confused older lady routine, asked questions I already knew the answers to, let him feel helpful and capable. He never asked what the audio files were, never asked why I wanted to know about scheduled posts, never wondered why I was taking such careful notes. Perfect. Rachel arrived Saturday at 10. Punctual. Put together. Wearing an expensive coat and carrying a bag from that fancy bakery. She brought coffee and those fancy croissants again. The good daughter performance. One last show. We sat at Mom's kitchen table. The same table where I'd listened to the recordings, where I'd spread out the evidence, where I'd finally understood all of that was hidden now. The table was clear except for our coffees, just two sisters having a difficult conversation about their mother's estate. So, she said, sipping her latte, what's the plan for the house? I thought we should list it soon. Get the estate settled. She nodded, tried to look neutral. Failed? And the financial stuff? Have you looked at that? A bit. The lawyer's handling most of it. Her jaw tightened. Just slightly. Just enough for me to see. She didn't like the lawyer being involved. Didn't like things being out of her control. We should probably go over it together. Make sure everything's in order. Sure, I said. Calm. Pleasant. The good little nurse. Actually, there was one thing I wanted to ask you about. Okay. I pulled out a folder, put it on the table between us, watched her face. I found some discrepancies with Mom's medications. Rachel's expression didn't change. Years of practice. Years of lying. But her hands stopped moving. Coffee cup halfway to her lips, frozen in place. What kind of discrepancies? The pills didn't match the prescriptions. I opened the folder, showed her the lab report. The first page with the summary. The damning summary. She read it, her eyes moving across the page, her face perfectly still, set down her coffee very carefully, like it might shatter if she moved too fast. I don't understand. Don't you? We looked at each other. The air felt sharp, electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Diane, what are you implying? I didn't answer, just pulled out my phone, pressed play. Mom's voice filled the kitchen. Rachel switched them, baby. I don't know when exactly. Rachel's face went white, all the blood draining away. Then red, flooding back. Anger or fear, I couldn't tell. This is insane. She had dementia, Diane. She was paranoid. I played the second recording, the one about the Sunday visit, the reorganizing, the switch. Completely delusional. That's what dementia does. I played the third. Mom crying about the pills I'd found in the trash, about me getting the lockbox, about being trapped. With each recording, Rachel's composure cracked a little more. The performance slipping, the mask falling away. Where did you find these? Mom hid them, along with the original pills and notes. I spread more evidence across the table. Photos of the bottles, copies of the notes, pages from my own logs with dates circled. She tried to tell me so many times, and I didn't believe her because I thought she was sick. Because you made her sick. Rachel stood up, knocking her chair back, sending her coffee sloshing across the table. You can't prove any of this, can't I? I smiled. It felt strange on my face. Unused muscles. I have the pills, the lab report, the recordings, my own logs showing exactly what I gave her and when. Your logs show you poisoned her, Rachel said. Her voice was sharp now. The sweetness gone, the performance over. Everyone knew you were the one taking care of her. You're the one who administered everything. If you try to claim something else happened, you'll just incriminate yourself. There it was. The real Rachel. The one who calculated and planned and used. The one who'd watched our mother drown and called it a performance. Here's the thing, I said. Still calm. Still pleasant. The eye of the storm. You're right that my logs show I gave Mom the medications. But they also show exactly when her symptoms started. 4 months after diagnosis. Right after your solo visit. And Mom's notes in her handwriting place the switch during that visit. Her recordings corroborate. I was the instrument. You were the architect. I leaned forward, made sure she could see my face, made sure she understood. And Mom knew exactly what you were doing. She left a trail of breadcrumbs for me because she knew I'd find them eventually. Because she knew I'm very, very good at organizing information. She knew her Diane, the daughter who alphabetizes the apocalypse, who makes systems out of chaos, who finishes what she starts. Rachel sat back down, slowly, calculating. I could see her mind working, running through options, looking for angles, trying to find a way out. What do you want? Want? Money? The house? My silence about your incompetence? I almost laughed. She really thought this was a negotiation, that everything could be bought or sold, that I was just looking for leverage. I don't want anything from you. I stood up, gathered my papers, put them back in the folder. I want you to understand that Mom won. She protected me, left me everything I needed to prove the truth. And she made sure you'd get nothing. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Sharp and cold. The will splits everything 50-50. It does, I agreed. Unless one of us is found to have abused or neglected her, then that person gets nothing. I watched understanding dawn. The color draining from her face again. The codicil. The trap Mom had set 2 years ago. You can't prove abuse. I don't have to. The medical board will... I pulled out my phone, showed her the complaint I'd already filed against Dr. Hendricks for gross negligence and potential conspiracy in the death of Patricia Morgan. I provided them with everything, the lab reports, the medication logs, Mom's recordings describing your visit. They've already opened an investigation. Once they interview him, how long do you think before your name comes up? He prescribed the real medications. I gave whatever was in the bottles. Someone switched them. And who was that, Rachel? Who had access? Who had motive? Who stands to gain if I'm discredited? Rachel's hands were shaking now. Visible tremors. Fear made physical. You'll lose your inheritance too. If there's any hint you were involved, maybe, I said. But I didn't switch the medications. I didn't stand to gain from her death. I wasn't the one who increased my visits once the poisoning started. I didn't praise the devoted sister while orchestrating her as a weapon. I picked up my purse. Funny thing about patterns of behavior, Rachel. Once people start looking, they find all sorts of interesting things. Your finances, for instance. That failed startup. Your husband's gambling debts. Your mortgage payment history. The timeline of your visits increasing as Mom got worse. The fact that you never once questioned my care. Never asked to see the pills themselves. Never suggested a second opinion. I didn't even have to dig deep. It's all public record. I headed toward the door. I'll be sharing Mom's memorial website today. The one with her story. Full story. In her own words, the family should know who she really was. Don't you think... Rachel tried to stop me, grabbed my arm in the hallway, pulled hard enough to leave bruises. You can't do this. I already have. I'll sue you for defamation. Slander. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. I removed her hand from my arm. Finger bu finger. You can try. I'll tell everyone you're lying, that you're grief-stricken and delusional. You can try that too. People will believe me. Her voice was rising. Desperate. They always believe me. I'm the successful one. The together one, you're just the spinster librarian who went crazy after Mom died. I smiled. Genuinely this time. Felt it reach my eyes. Maybe some will. But here's the thing about truth, Rachel. It has a way of coming out. Ask Mom. She understood that better than either of us. I opened the front door, stepped outside into the spring sunshine. Goodbye, Rachel. Give my regards to Marcus and his bookies. I left her there. In Mom's house, surrounded by the evidence of her own cruelty, watching everything she'd built crumble. The memorial website went live that afternoon. I'd scheduled it before the confrontation. Wanted it to be out there, regardless of how our conversation went. Wanted the truth to exist somewhere, even if something happened to me. It started with the beautiful parts. Photos of Mom at various ages. Her wedding portrait, holding baby Rachel, holding baby me. At the beach, at the mountains, in her garden. Painting in her studio, laughing at someone's joke. Then the story, her story, in her own words from the recordings, transcribed and cleaned up slightly, but faithful to what she'd said. The truth about what had happened to her, the truth about the pills, the truth about Rachel, the truth about me too. I didn't hide my role, didn't pretend I was innocent, explained exactly what I'd done, believing I was helping. Let people judge for themselves. Within hours, it had been shared 50 times. Family members sending it to other family members. Old friends of Mom's clicking through. People who'd known us as children reading in horror. By evening, over 500 shares. The comments section filling with shock and outrage and grief. Some people didn't believe it. Called it lies, called it slander, called it a grieving woman losing her mind. Rachel's friends, mostly. People who'd only ever seen her performance. But more believed it. More heard Mom's voice and recognized the truth. More saw the evidence and understood what had happened. The extended family fractured along predictable lines. Those who'd always liked Rachel better. Those who'd always suspected something was off. Those who didn't want to take sides. Those who couldn't stop taking sides. I didn't care about convincing anyone. The people who mattered knew. Mom's voice was out there, telling her story. That was enough. The fallout came in waves. First wave, the family. My cousin Jennifer called me, crying. Said she'd always thought something was off about Rachel. That she'd noticed things over the years. Little cruelties, little manipulations, little lies. That she was glad the truth came out. That she believed me. That she was sorry she hadn't said anything sooner. Aunt Margaret, Mom's sister, drove 4 hours to see me. Sat in Mom's living room and listened to the recordings herself. Cried until she couldn't breathe. Held my hand and told me it wasn't my fault. Said she wished she'd been more involved. Said she'd never forgive Rachel. Said she hoped Mom knew how much she was loved. Uncle Robert stopped speaking to both of us. Said he couldn't handle the drama. Said families shouldn't air dirty laundry. Said some things were better left buried. He was wrong, but I didn't argue. Some people aren't ready for truth. That's their burden to carry. Second wave? The marriages. Rachel's husband, Marcus, filed for divorce 3 weeks after the website went live. Not because of what she'd done to Mom. He probably could have rationalized that given time. Told himself it was complicated, that families have secrets, that he didn't really know what had happened. But the gambling debts coming to light was too much. The public humiliation was too much. The neighbors reading about his failures was too much. He moved out of their house, the house they were about to lose anyway. Filed papers that blamed irreconcilable differences. Started dating someone new within a month. Rachel was alone, in a foreclosed house, with a ruined reputation, without a family. I tried to feel bad about it. Tried to summon some sisterly sympathy. Couldn't. Third wave. The medical board. The investigation into Dr. Hendricks expanded. They found other patients with unusual declines. Other cases where medication logs didn't match symptoms. Opened a broader inquiry. He wasn't criminally charged. Couldn't prove he knew about the switch. But his license was suspended pending review. His practice collapsed. His reputation was destroyed. Collateral damage, maybe? But he'd been careless. Hadn't questioned the strange trajectory of Mom's illness. Hadn't wondered why she declined so fast. Hadn't done the basic due diligence that might have saved her. I don't feel guilty about him. Fourth wave, the legal system. Rachel fought the will. Of course she did. Hired an expensive lawyer. Filed motions claiming undue influence. Said I'd manipulated Mom in her final years. That I'd isolated her from family. That I'd turned her against her own daughter. But Mom's lawyer had notes from their meetings. Detailed, dated, witnessed. Documented Mom's clear competence when the codicil was added. Explained that Mom had specifically anticipated this scenario. That she'd come in alone, without either daughter, to make her wishes clear. That she'd said, and he'd written down, I want to protect Diane. I'm worried about what might happen. I want there to be consequences if anyone hurts her. The judge wasn't sympathetic. Reviewed the evidence, listened to the recordings, read the lab reports, saw the pattern. Rachel got nothing. The entire estate went to me. The house, the money, the paintings, the jewelry, everything Mom had worked for her whole life. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired and sawed and done. I sold Mom's house 6 months later. Couldn't live there anymore. Couldn't walk past her studio without crying. Couldn't sit at the kitchen table without hearing her voice. Couldn't sleep in my old room knowing what had happened in hers. I kept a few things. Her watercolors. The autumn lake and the spring garden and the winter trees. Hung them in my new apartment where I could see them every day. The digital recorder. The cheap plastic thing that had saved my life and my sanity. I keep it in my nightstand drawer. Sometimes I still listen to her voice. A photo of the three of us from before. Mom, Rachel, May. Summer vacation, 1982. We're standing on a beach somewhere, squinting at the camera. Rachel is 14, all legs and attitude. I'm 12, awkward and shy. Mom is young and beautiful, her arms around both of us. Before I learned that love could be a weapon. Before I knew that sisters could be strangers. Before I understood what family really costs. The money went into a trust. Most of it, I kept enough to be comfortable. The rest I donate. Dementia research mostly. Real research to help people who actually have the disease my mother never did. A foundation for caregiver support too. Because I know how exhausting it is. How isolating. How easy to exploit. And a scholarship at the library school. For reference librarians, the patient ones, the thorough ones, the ones who help people find things they didn't know they were looking for. I'm 63 now. I live in a small apartment near the library where I used to work. 3rd floor with a little balcony that catches the morning sun. Quiet neighbors, reasonable rent, a view of the park. Sometimes I volunteer at the library, help people navigate the computers, teach seniors how to use email, find genealogy records for families trying to understand where they came from. It's funny how patient I am with technology now. How little I care about organizing everything perfectly. Some things can't be systematized. Some chaos just is. I think about Mom every day. Not constantly, not obsessively, just a steady presence at the edge of my awareness. A voice I still hear when I'm making tea or folding laundry or looking at autumn trees. I think about how scared she must have been, lucid enough to understand what was happening, not lucid enough to stop it, drowning in slow motion while no one saw. I think about how hard she fought to stay coherent. Recording messages on days when she could barely speak, writing notes that took hours of concentration, hiding evidence everywhere, hoping I'd find it, believing I would. I think about the mother she was. Before the fog, before the pills, before Rachel's betrayal. The mother who taught me to be thorough, who valued precision and care and attention to detail, who raised me to finish what I started. She knew what she was doing, even at the end. She was strategic. She was determined. She was protecting her baby girl. I think about Rachel too. Not often, but sometimes, Late at night, when the apartment is quiet and the memories won't stay down, I wonder if she thinks about Mom. If she has nightmares about those recordings, about Mom's voice, clear and damning, about being outplayed by the woman she was killing. I wonder if she regrets any of it. Not getting caught, but doing it. Not the consequences, but the act itself. Switching those pills. Watching Mom deteriorate. Visiting every week to monitor her destruction. I wonder if she's capable of remorse. Probably not. People like Rachel don't feel guilty. They feel caught. They don't regret the crime. They regret the punishment. Last I heard, she was living in another state, different name maybe, starting over, finding new people to charm and manipulate and use. I hope they're smarter than I was. I hope they see through her. I hope someone stops her before she does this again. But that's not my job anymore. I did what I could. Put the truth out there. Let the chips fall. What happens to Rachel now is between her and whatever she believes in. Last week, I was at the grocery store. Ordinary Tuesday. Ordinary errands? Picking up milk and bread and the good coffee Mom used to like. Ran into an old neighbor of Mom's. Mrs. Patterson, from 3 doors down. She'd known Mom for 20 years. Brought casseroles when Dad died. Waved from her driveway every morning. She hugged me, right there in the produce section. Said she'd seen the memorial website, that she'd always admired how devoted I was, how much I sacrificed, how lucky Mom was to have me. I thanked her, didn't correct her, because I was devoted. I did sacrifice. I just didn't know what I was sacrificing for. That's the part that still catches in my throat sometimes. The not knowing, the 3 years of believing I was helping, of taking pride in my careful routines, my detailed logs, my perfect medication administration. Every pill I gave her, every dose I measured, every time I praised myself for being so organized, I was killing her. Slowly, carefully, thoroughly, with love and devotion and good intentions. How do you live with that? How do you forgive yourself for something you didn't know you were doing? But Mom knew. That's what I come back to, again and again. Mom knew. She knew I'd find her trail. She knew I'd organize it all into a coherent narrative. She knew I'd build the case, present the evidence, get the truth out there. She knew her Diane. The daughter who alphabetizes the apocalypse, who makes systems out of chaos, who finishes what she starts. She turned my greatest weakness into my salvation. My need for order, for systems, for complete understanding. The same traits that made me Rachel's perfect tool became the key. Without my thoroughness, I wouldn't have found the recordings. Without my attention to detail, I wouldn't have noticed the labels. Without my need to understand, I wouldn't have gotten the tests. Rachel used me. But Mom used me too. Used me better. Used me to win. The grief counselor I saw for a while asked if I'd forgiven myself. I told her I was working on it. That's what you're supposed to say, right? That's what healthy people say. The truth is, I don't know if forgiveness is the right frame. I did what I thought was right with the information I had, followed doctor's orders, trusted my sister, cared for my mother with everything I had. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. The worst wrong of my entire life. But I was also deliberately deceived by someone who knew exactly how to manipulate me. Someone who counted on my devotion. Someone who weaponized my love. Both things are true. The guilt and the victimhood. The responsibility and the manipulation. I carry both. What I have forgiven myself for is the ending. For finding the recordings. For following Mom's breadcrumbs. For making sure Rachel lost everything. Some people might call it revenge. I call it completing the task Mom started. She documented her own murder and left me the evidence. The least I could do was make sure it meant something. The 6th recording, I haven't mentioned it until now. The one I found in my own suitcase. In my own room. Hidden in the pocket where I keep my travel documents. It was different from the others. Not about Rachel. Not about the pills. Not about what was happening to her. Just Mom talking to me. Diane, my beautiful girl, I don't know when you'll find this. Maybe not for years. Maybe you'll move and take this suitcase and never look in this pocket. But I wanted you to have something. Something that's just for you. Not about Rachel. Not about what she did. Just about how much I love you. A long pause. Her breathing soft and steady. You were such a wonderful child. So careful. So thoughtful. So determined to do things right. I used to watch you doing your homework and think, she's going to be amazing. She's going to do incredible things. And you did. In your own quiet way, you helped so many people at that library, found so many answers to so many questions, made order out of chaos over and over. That's a gift, Diane. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Your father and I were so proud of you, are so proud. He's watching too, wherever he is. And I'll be watching soon, watching you figure this out, watching you put the pieces together, watching you save yourself. Mom's voice got thick. Tears I could hear but not see. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. Sorry I didn't see what Rachel was until it was too late. Sorry I brought this into your life. But I'm not sorry for you. You're going to be okay, Diane. You're going to survive this. You're going to find the truth, and you're going to do what needs to be done. And then you're going to live. Really live. Not just take care of everyone else, but take care of yourself. Find joy. Find peace. Find whatever makes you happy. That's all I want for you. That's all I've ever wanted. My beautiful, thorough, devoted girl. I love you so much. Forever. No matter what. End of recording. I listen to it sometimes. When I need to hear her. When I need to remember that love leaves evidence too. Not just cruelty. And that even from inside the fog, even while drowning, she was still my mother. Still protecting me. Still believing in me. Still loving me. She was right about everything. I did figure it out. I did put the pieces together. I did save myself. And I'm learning to live. Really live. Not just organize other people's chaos, but find my own peace. If you're listening to this and something feels off in your own life, trust yourself. Not everyone who seems confused is losing their mind. Ready to hear. Not everyone who seems helpful has clean hands. Sometimes the person with the warmest smile is hiding the sharpest knife. Not every system designed to protect us actually does. Sometimes the safeguards become the weapons. Sometimes the care becomes the cage. And sometimes the person you think you're helping is actually trying to help you, reaching out from inside their prison, leaving clues and messages and breadcrumbs, trusting you to find your way to the truth. You just have to be willing to see it. Even when it's hidden, even when it's hard, even when finding the truth means facing what you've done. I still have the recorder. All of them. 7 messages from my mother. 7 pieces of her voice. Preserved forever. I listen when I need to. When the guilt gets heavy, when the grief gets loud, when I need to remember that she forgave me, that she loved me, that she trusted me, that she won, and that even in the darkest fog, even in the deepest silence, even when everything seems lost, love finds a way. Truth finds a way. Mothers find a way. She found hers, and she left it there for me. Just like she always said she would. The good little nurse, the daughter who alphabetizes the apocalypse, the one who finishes what she starts. I'm Diane. This is my story. And my mother was right about everything.